Ooh. All right. What is up, guys? I'm here doing the Georgia-Auburn post-game video. Georgia rolls 34-10 over Auburn in Jordan-Hare. Stetson Bennett had a solid game, 14 of 20 for 231 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 6 carries for 41 yards. I believe he was sacked just a couple times. Zamir White had 18 carries for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kendall Milton had 9 carries, 43 yards. James Cook, 7 carries, 35 yards. Did not see any Kenny McIntosh. He was out for this game, but it is what it is. We had a lot of injuries before this game. We'll talk about that later. Ladd McConkey, what a day he had. He was doing really well at blocking in space, but he had 5 catches for 135 yards and a touchdown, had that big deep ball back in the third quarter to take the Dogs' lead from 17-3 to 24-3. Brock Bowers had 2 catches, 43 yards. Darnell Washington had 1 giant gain on a 25-yard reception. And Georgia's defense played pretty well in the second half, shutting out Auburn. I believe Georgia's defense held Auburn to 130 yards of total offense in the second half and 0 points, obviously. First half, Georgia's defense was actually giving up some yards. They gave up, I think, 180 yards in the first half, 10 points. They gave up around 9 or 10 first downs. Second half, Georgia's defense, again, plays really well, especially in the front 7, as Georgia, I believe, had, 4 or 5 sacks in this game. Nakobe Dean had an interception back in the second quarter. Georgia started this game out down 3-0. Auburn went on a 10 or 11 play drive, resulting in just a 26-yard field goal from their really good field goal kicker, Anders Carlson. But Georgia on their first drive goes 3 and out, and then defensively they force a stop. Then they go down and kick a field goal. And then, or actually, I think that was the interception from Nakobe Dean. And then they kick a field goal. And then Georgia gets a good stop. And then they go down on a long drive back in the first half to make it 10-3. And then from then on, Georgia's offense was actually playing exceptionally well up until about the midway point in the second quarter. Could not get first downs. They were held to 2 straight 3 and outs in a row. Then Auburn goes on a 12-play drive, resulting in 0 points. 12 plays, 71 yards. They took up almost 2 minutes, almost the entire time in the second quarter, or in the last 2 minutes of the second quarter, and they could not get a touchdown. You go back on that 4th down and goal play. For being real here, I think Brenny was just a little bit early, and that could have been a pass interference call, but it worked out in Georgia's favor, and they held them to 0 points. And then Auburn could not get anything going in the second half at all. Georgia's offense in the second half dominates like they've been doing all year. Georgia had, I think, 200 and something yards in the second half, and the offensive line played really well, especially in the second half. We were able to rush for 200 yards on Auburn, which is hard to do, especially on the road in a hostile environment. So give Georgia's offensive line some credit. Give Stetson Bennett some credit. Like I said, if he had a solid game, a couple plays, he could have possibly made a better read, but other than and a better throw. But other than those slight things, he played pretty fine. And Georgia's secondary first half kind of struggled. There were, and honestly, for a majority of this game, there were Auburn wide receivers running wide open. Bo Nix was putting it right in their hands. Some of them were in duress, but I thought Bo Nix was playing pretty hard and playing pretty well for the most part. His wide receivers were not helping him out. And if you're an Auburn fan, you hate to see that. But again, Georgia's defense, that front 7 steps up. I believe we had 4 sacks in the second half, maybe 3. We held Bo Nix to negative yards rushing in the second half. And in fact, we held him to negative yards rushing in the entire game. He had 10 carries for negative 16 yards. Wow. I don't think there are many games in Bo Nix's career that he's ever had negative yards rushing. He is a dual threat QB for a reason. He was trying to extend plays all day. And especially back in the first half on that nice drive Auburn had, he was able to shake off Trayvon Walker and Wyatt and make a 25-yard pass, but all ended up for nothing. So Bo Nix goes, 21 of 38, 217 yards, throws one interception. That's only 5.7 yards per average. So that's not going to get it done if you're an Auburn fan. But the Dogs roll to victory, 34-10 over Auburn. And let's get to some of these comments. Yeah, Dogs roll. How about the effing Dogs? And we got Go Dogs. What's up, Phil? But this was a completely different game than the Arkansas game. Georgia 100% relied on the offensive line against Arkansas. It's because Arkansas was running that 3-3-5 defense, a defense that is more so trying to defend the deep pass and even medium passes and keep everything in front of you, which makes zero sense at all. Barry Odom is a very good defensive mind. But anyway, Derek Mason, I thought his defense, for the most part, played okay. It's just Georgia just has the better roster, has the better team. So have we played someone now? Yeah, a lot of people are asking who has Georgia played, and you know, a lot of people say that for just about every team. Go Dogs. But Auburn is a good team. Arkansas is a good team. Clemson is obviously a good team. Now, out of those three teams, I think the better team that we played so far was probably Arkansas. But I think Auburn gave us a really, really good shot, especially in the first half. Oh, actually, Auburn did score. I may have messed that up earlier. Auburn did score in the second half. They scored a touchdown in the third quarter. They didn't shut us out. So, but I mean, we didn't shut them out in the entire second half. They did score a touchdown. But other than that, it was pretty much nothing. You go back to that touchdown drive. If you take that touchdown drive out, Auburn had just like around 75 yards. So, again, Georgia rolled. Georgia gets a 34-10 win over Auburn on the road in a hostile environment. No one is if you're a Georgia fan, you're feeling pretty good about that, especially with all these injuries. Who was injured? Who wasn't in the game? Unfortunately, in the game, Sawyer, starting offensive lineman for UGA, goes down. We do not know how serious that injury is. Hopefully it's nothing. But wide receivers, man, Georgia had, 5 or 6 wide receivers out in this game? It's ridiculous. Still no Don Blaylock. Still no George Pickens, obviously. Rosemy was out. Jermaine Burton was out. Kyrus Jackson barely even played in the first, for the majority of the game. He had a couple catches, though. But, yeah, Georgia was not showing off as much at the wide receiver because of the injuries. Again, running back, no Kenny McIntosh. Chris Smith was out in this game. I think he got hurt earlier on. So Dan Jackson had to step up at safety. I thought he did okay. But, yeah, Georgia, good win on the road. Will build more confidence. Yeah, this was a pretty good win on the road. Whenever you play Auburn on the road, that is a good win in my opinion. Auburn is usually always a top 25-ish team. At the least of it, they're around top 35. And to beat them in Jordan-Hare always feels good, especially when you're Kirby Smart. And now he's actually won 2 in a row on the road at Jordan-Hare. And Georgia is now, 15-3 against Auburn in the last 18 meetings. So there is that. But the last 2 times Auburn was top 20 at home against UGA, I think Auburn won those games. So that is a plus side. Or no, actually Kirby before the last time that we played them, which was 2019, it was the last 2 times that Auburn was ranked top 20 in Jordan-Hare and played UGA. Auburn won those games. But Kirby Smart is now what? 4-1 against Auburn. You'll always take that. He's beat them every year as a head coach. Even in 2017, we played him twice. So, again, there's that. In Georgia, it's your championship to lose. I don't know about that. I really do not know about that. I think the 4 best teams in the country right now, Georgia's obviously one of those 4 teams. I think it's Alabama's to lose, in my opinion. We gotta get healthy, or at least some of these wide receivers and JT Daniels back, obviously. But yeah, go Dogs. Defense started a little. Yeah, defense did start a little. I wouldn't say shaky, because they were not giving up touchdowns, especially in the first half. 0 touchdowns in the first half, just 3 points. But Auburn went on 2 big drives in the first half. Georgia holds them to just 3 points, and getting that huge 4th down stop at the goal line, pretty much. Auburn was at the 2 or 3 yard line, and they just could not score. Now, in the third quarter, who was it? Tank Bigsby. Unfortunately for UGA fans, he's the first running back to rush a touchdown against UGA since what? 2018? My goodness, it's been like 3 years. I cannot remember. Yeah, it was 2018. I think it was Josh Jacobs for Alabama was the last running back that scored a touchdown on UGA, that rushed a touchdown on UGA. So it is what it is, but, the streak had to end. And let's just be real here. This is a good Auburn team. Auburn is going to win a couple more games. Listen, the SEC West is a gauntlet. They got to play Mississippi State. Auburn's only played LSU so far in the SEC West. They got to play Mississippi State, Alabama, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and then they get South Carolina. So I think they'll beat South Carolina, but the 5 other SEC West teams will not be easy at all, especially for Auburn. Those wide receivers for Auburn are just not going to cut it, because Bo Nix was putting Auburn in good position, in my opinion, to win the game if he had wide receivers. That rushing touchdown we gave up was terrible. 3 missed tackles on that. Yeah, and that's just Tank Bigsby making a play at least. Give him some credit. But, yeah, I was a little upset. I was like, oh, no. But, it is what it is. The streak had to end eventually. And let's just be real here. Is it so much of a big deal right now? No. But, again, so Georgia gives up their just 2nd touchdown of the year on defense. First touchdown in 3 years. First rushing touchdown to a running back in 3 years. Of course, it comes to Auburn. But it was a road game, and to a really good SEC running back. And by the way, Tank Bigsby had a terrible game. Georgia really contained him. And this is what Georgia's, especially Kirby Smart's 3-4 scheme does really well. And what it's best for is the rush defense. Tank Bigsby had 10 carries for just 28 yards. He obviously had that touchdown, so you get that. And he also had 3 catches for 22 yards. So for one of the better running backs in the SEC, held to pretty much nothing. I mean, nothing. Tank Bigsby, before this game, had, 74 carries, 430 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaged 5.8 yards per carry. This game only gets 10 carries, 28 yards. That's 2.8 yards per carry. That's UGA, baby. That front 7, the best front 7 in the country, and one of the best front 7s we've ever seen in recent history. You got to go back to Alabama's. Probably Alabama's in 2012. A couple really. You got to go back to Alabama. That's how good UGA's front 7 is. The best it's ever been, especially at UGA. Jordan Davis is a beast. Jalen Carter had a really good game. Wyatt had a really good game. LeCue had a sack today, number 96. I believe that was his first sack of the year. Robert Beal had, I think, a sack. They might count it as a half sack because Jalen Carter kind of tripped up Bo Nix, but still, love to see it. Yeah, we did keep Bigsby in check. I'm not going to sit here and say I would, be scared, but, I expected a little bit more from Auburn's rush offense. I know Georgia's, like I said, top one front seven, and Georgia's deep at pretty much every position on the defensive line. It's insane. But I thought Auburn was going to be able to run the ball, especially with Bo Nix. We held him to 10. I think it's more impressive that we held him to 10 carries, negative 16 yards. But those, you got to look into all those sacks. But anyway, what was with these commentators the last two games trying to convince us that Stetson's better than JT? I don't really think they were convincing us that. I just think that they would, as like a coach standpoint, would go with a hot hand, I guess. Listen, JT Daniels is a better QB and puts UGA at a better position to win a championship than Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett, though, has been playing as hard as he can. Has he been playing well? Well, today I thought he played pretty well. He had a couple missed throws and missed reads. And on that one sack back in the first quarter, he read that play completely wrong. And Derek Mason likes to send not all the time, but you have to know this with Derek Mason's defensive scheme. He likes to send some of his nickelbacks and cornerbacks on different formations. So Stetson Bennett didn't read that one correctly, so he took a sack. But other than that, he played fine today. He underthrew a ball to Ladd McConkey back in the first half. But again, I don't think they're trying to convince you that UGA or that Stetson Bennett is better. I think it's more of they just want to go with the hot hand, and they appreciate what Stetson Bennett has done. But a lot of it has been because of the defense and the talent around him, especially that offensive line. Offensive line played pretty well in the second half, in my opinion. Dogs on top, yep. Trayvon Walker had a good game as well. Did he record a sack? I don't think so. But he had a good game. Pretty much everybody on the defensive line, in my opinion, had a good game. Not scared, but I know they run their run game is pretty good. Yeah, Auburn coming into this game, I didn't look into this. I probably should have, what their rushing rank was. But even against LSU, they were able to rush for 160 yards on just 29 carries. They were pretty much down that entire game. But you got to go back to the Penn State game. Auburn was still able to run the ball on Penn State. Penn State is a very, very good defensive team. And I have the Penn State game on actually right in front of me. Penn State is on top right now. But Penn State's a really good team. And Penn State's a top 10 team regardless. And Auburn was still able to rush on them. But, yeah, I thought Auburn was going to run more with Bo Nix. So that was just my opinion. It's not pronounced Legu. It sounds like Logi or something like that. Yeah, he had his first sack, I believe, of his career today back in the first half. Tons of pressure. Yeah, and Auburn's offensive line isn't the best, but it is not the worst, okay? Auburn's offensive line, I would say – I'm not going to say they played well, but they didn't play terrible. A lot of this was Georgia's secondary was actually playing really, really well at some points in time. And Bo Nix was holding onto the ball and not making the correct reads at some points. Just a little bit of everything. But the pass rush played really, really well. And the rush defense, again, Georgia's the best rush defensive team in the country. And it doesn't matter who we play, we're going to stop your run. We play Kentucky next week, which will be a huge, huge game, a huge test. Kentucky likes to run the ball. Kentucky probably has almost as good as a rush offensive line as Arkansas. I would definitely take Arkansas's right now. But even Arkansas had a very tough time against Georgia's defensive line in front seven. And I do expect the same with Kentucky's. And that's a 3:30 prime time on game on CBS next week. If Kentucky wins tonight, they should be a top 10 team, in my opinion. But Will Levis is going to have to make some plays. And, the pass rush is maybe not statistically the best in the country, but in my opinion, it just is when it wants to be. It doesn't matter who UGA plays. This is the best pass rush that we've seen, especially in the first 6 games. In a production standpoint, as a UGA fan, in the past couple of years, go back to even 2018. In the first 6 games, I believe Georgia only had 14 sacks or something like that, or 12 sacks. They were not getting to the QB as much as they are now. And in some of these bigger games, like against Clemson, you had 7 sacks. Today, I think we had 4 or 5 sacks. Last week, we had 4 sacks. Georgia's front 7 is just getting to the QB. And it's not just one guy. It's the entire defensive line. But Georgia's defensive tackles and nose guards are no joke, man. They are by far the best in the country. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Wyatt, even some of these third-team guys, they've all played really, really well in the the interior defensive line. It's just fun to watch this Georgia defense attack for the most part. But looks like my stat line was wrong with Stetson Bennett. He actually was 14 of 21, not 14 of 20. It is what it is. I guess they didn't I have it on ESPN. I guess they didn't record it up to the point which I made these little barrier things. But he's actually 14 of 21. So when this gets posted as a video, somebody in the comment section will probably roast me on that. It is what it is. Yeah, I hope Chris Smith is okay. I hope Sawyer is okay. I don't know. I think Chris Smith was a shoulder injury. Shoulder injuries always sting, man. I have one right now, unfortunately. They sometimes come back, but I don't know exactly what happened with him. So we'll see on the injury update with him. Still no Dominic Blaylock. I don't know when he'll be back. Still no George Pickens, obviously. Rosemy, Arian Smith was out too. I forgot to name him. Again, I don't know when these guys are coming back. There is not a lot of updates on any of these guys. Tyke Smith, still haven't seen him. Didn't see him today. So it is what it is. Georgia is playing these teams without how many starters? I mean, it's just insane. And Georgia's beating teams by 20 points. Georgia just beat a top 20 team by 24 points on the road without their starting QB, their entire starting wide receiving core, all 3 of them. Burton, Harris Jackson usually is a starter. George Pickens, Sawyer pretty much played without this game. Rutledge back in the first, he got hurt in the first snap. And Georgia is just completely dominating these teams. It just is pretty convincing and fun to watch UGA. Hopefully more people will be back against Florida. I expect it because we do get a bye week before them. That game's 3 weeks away. But we need people back for this Kentucky game. Kentucky is not a bad team at all. In fact, Kentucky's a very good team. Their defense is very, very, very good. They might give up some yards, especially last week in their win against Florida. Kentucky gave up like 300-esque yards, maybe 350. But their defense, when it matters most, they get stops and they can turn you over. So give Kentucky a lot of credit. Now, Kentucky does have a turnover problem on offense. Somehow, some way, this team is -8 in the turnover margin, and they're undefeated. You're playing a really good offensive team today against LSU. Really, really good pass offensive team. We're not going to go into rush. They're not a good rush offensive team at all. LSU, which is ironic because LSU, especially in the past, is known as a rush team. But it's going to be Kentucky. Kentucky is going to have to force Max Johnson into making bad decisions today. But I expect them to win. That's going to be a really good game. It is on the road against Kentucky. But yeah, they're -8 in the turnover battle, and somehow they're undefeated, which is crazy. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it helps a lot, especially UGA. Georgia is dominating every team on the line of scrimmage, every team so far. And it's kind of weird because UGA can do it pretty much whatever they want against you. And that's how you know you just don't have a shot. You just don't have a shot. And I do expect UGA to roll over Kentucky next week. I don't think it's going to be 34-10. Depends who's at QB. If it's Stetson Bennett, this game could actually worry me. But I think JT Daniels will be back. I don't sleep on any SE team. Neither do I, even if it's Vanderbilt. And you know what's funny? Florida struggled in the first half against Vandy. I'll talk about this again. This real quick. I didn't really check the Florida live stream, but if I'm a Florida fan, I would be absolutely embarrassed for that showing that you gave up against Vanderbilt in the first half. It was 21-0. I get it. It's 21-0 against Vandy. Vanderbilt missed 2 field goals. 2. They missed 2 4th down and ones that they were on Florida's territory at the 25 of Florida. And on a 4th and goal at the 1, they couldn't punch it in. They actually threw it. And Florida got really lucky that this game was not at least 21-13 or even 21 up at halftime. But they showed out in the second half anyway. Butte got hurt. LSU would score 10 points a game. LSU, he is by far the best player on the team, especially on offense. He's insane. His route running is probably the best, one of the best in the SEC. Him and Burks, I don't know who's better. Burks can make just about any 50-50 ball, and we saw that against Ole Miss. Man, Treylon Burks was insane today. Both those teams played really, really well. Those are 2 of the evenly matched teams I think that we've seen all year. What's the score of the Florida game? It was 42-0. So Florida did cover the spread, so it doesn't really matter, how they played. A lot of people just look at the score and say, oh, it's 42-0, so who cares? But in that first half, they played really, really, really bad. Florida played really, really, really bad. Anthony Richardson got hit and just threw a ball up in the air and got picked. But yeah, that wasn't a game I was watching though. I have 2 screens, so I was pretty much watching Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Texas, Oklahoma, 2 of the best games all of the year. Oh, the Florida-Kentucky game, it was 20-13. Kentucky was able to win. Kentucky threw for less than 90 yards. They rushed for about – I'm just making it up. I think 150. I could look it up real quick. 150, 170 yards on Florida, which is a lot for Florida because their strong suit is their front 7 as well as us. But, yeah, Kentucky gave up less than 100 yards rushing, which was actually really, really good. They did a really solid job on the line of scrimmage. But yeah, Georgia should have similar success like they have been all year. They're just going to try to dominate the offensive defensive line, and it's just hard. It's hard to go up against UGA. It really is. It's just hard to go up against UGA unless you're one of the top 5 teams in the country. Which, in my opinion, who are the top 5 teams in the country? I'd say the winner. The winner of this Iowa-Penn State game is probably top 5, them or Cincinnati. But I really, really, really think Oklahoma with Caleb Williams is a completely different team. And Oklahoma with Caleb Williams is probably going to win the Big 12, might even go 13-0. If he could stay, Caleb Williams looked very, very, very good today. And that was his first real game against Texas. But Ohio State looks really, really good now. Ohio State is a completely different team than what they were in the first 3 weeks of the year. Their defense is playing really, really well, and KJ Stroud is unstoppable so far. And Georgia and Alabama. You think Texas A&M can make it a game? No, unfortunately, I do not. I would take Texas. I would take Alabama minus the 18. I told somebody back in the Texas A&M has a lot of injury problems right now. Texas A&M's probably and Georgia has a lot of injuries. but it hasn't hurt them. It hasn't hurt UGA as much as it hurt Texas A&M. And injuries you can't really make too much excuse for, but for Texas A&M you have to. I mean, this team is now without their starting QB, who's clearly better than their backup. I mean, just come on. They've been without 2 wide receivers almost every game this year. They need Chase Lane back. I think they do get him back today. I could look that up. Chapman has been out. And now they've had some injuries on the offensive line. Smith was out a game this year. Anarius Smith. Who else was out? They've had a couple defensive linemen out, a linebacker out, and now, unfortunately for A&M, they lost their 2 starting cornerbacks for the year. Miles Jones and George Johnson or something like that. So it's going to be hard for A&M. I think A&M's crowd could be big in this game, but I expect Bama to win like 35-7, maybe 35-14. I really, really hope, because I was high on Texas A&M all offseason. I hope Texas A&M at least makes this a game, but I don't think they can. I don't really think so. Oh yeah, when Darnell Washington made that huge play back in the I think that was the second half, wasn't it? He was wide open. He is hard to tackle. He's like 6'8", 270, 80 pounds, something like that. He is going to be hard to stop. He can block really, really well. And that's what, a lot of people don't really pay attention as much to the tight end's blocking ability, but he can really, really, really block. And we got lucky that they called a pointless pass interference. He was trying to make a one-handed grab. There was no pass interference on that. And I'm a UGA fan. I'm just going to tell you straight out, that should not have been called. Who's 23 for Auburn? I can't even remember. It's not McLean. I usually know who Auburn's players are. But that was not a pass interference. If you're an Auburn fan, I know you're upset with that. And I'm in a group chat with Auburn fans. They were really, really mad at that call. And I would have to agree that was no pass interference, at least in my opinion. So, but yeah. Let's see what we got. Ooh. So we'll talk about this Kentucky game real quick. Georgia plays Kentucky at home. Again, it's going to be the primetime game on CBS. That's 3:30. So we'll get, if you're watching this game on TV, like I think pretty much everybody, but you'll get to hear Gary Danielson. Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler call this game. But who will be back for this game? I hope JT Daniels is. Georgia is a different team, especially through the air with JT Daniels. Who else will be back? Everything's a question mark. I expect UGA to be a 17 to 20 something point favorite against a low 20 point favorite against Kentucky. And it really depends who's the QB, in my opinion. If it's Stetson Bennett, I don't think he's you got to give Kentucky a lot of credit because their defense is really, really solid. I don't know if he's good enough to beat Kentucky by 20 points. I think we are good enough to beat Kentucky regardless at who is QB. But I think obviously QB will make a huge difference in the score. I do expect JT Daniels to be back. I do expect UGA to roll. Score prediction, Will Levis is going to have to beat UGA through the air. It's going to have to happen. Rodriguez is a great running back. Smoke is a great running back, right? I just don't think this offensive line for Kentucky can do as much, especially with what we've seen against Arkansas and what UGA did against Arkansas. Kentucky is very similar in the style of rush offense that they try to do, except they don't use KJ Jefferson, or they don't use their quarterback like Arkansas does KJ Jefferson. KJ Jefferson gets like at least 15 carries per game. Will Levis, I think he's averaging like 7 or 8, maybe 9 or 10 carries a game. So, but I do expect UGA to win at home against Kentucky, and Kentucky will probably be a top 10 team, depending on if they beat LSU. If they beat LSU, they should be a top 10 team. And that could be a college game day game, which would be funny as well. That would be the third college game day for UGA. I don't know who else plays next week, unfortunately. I know it's no big game for the SEC. Maybe there's a Big Ten game. They're not probably going to go back to a Big 12 game. But yeah, I do expect UGA to roll against Kentucky. I don't think Will Levis is good enough. I do not think the running backs will have as big as an impact as you would like if you're a Kentucky fan or a Florida fan rooting against UGA or whatever. And I don't think this defense will be good enough to stop a really good Georgia offense. Georgia offense is by far a top 15 offense. It just is statistically. Georgia scoring now. Before this game, they were scoring 41 points per game. Now at 34, what is it at? 38, 39. That's still going to get you top 15. So, and Georgia added 20 yards rushing as well. I hope JT is back. I do wish he had the runability of Stetson. Yeah, that would be amazing. But it is what it is, JT Daniels is by far a very good QB. And you know what's kind of sad is JT Daniels is not even a top 10 QB prospect for the NFL draft. And he has missed a lot of games so far this year. But, I'm not even worried about NFL draft. I think he's definitely a NFL-style QB, at least in my opinion. But for what UGA needs, especially in the passing game, he will take UGA to the next level. I just don't think Stetson Bennett can do that, unfortunately. But that's just my opinion. And as much as I want to say my opinion could be wrong, it's kind of been proven in the past that it's not. Game managers usually, especially in the SEC, do not get it done anymore. So Stetson Bennett is good for what he is. Okay, he played fine today. Missed some guys wide open, but I don't know. That is a good question. It depends how well. It depends if he's able to get healthy on the next couple of weeks. It looks like Iowa's going to beat Penn State, which that's a big win for Iowa. Penn State lost their quarterback, Sean Clifford. And this Texas A&M game's coming up here in a couple minutes. But I do not know on JT Daniels coming back. He's got to get healthy. He's got the oblique problem, which led to his back. He came off of a knee injury a couple of years ago or last year. So, we'll see. But his draft stock has gone down significantly. But like I said, I think he is an NFL-ready QB. I really hope and pray that he is okay. I really, really, really do. We need him healthy. UGA will be doing great things with JT Daniels at QB. And I mean by great things, I mean they can win a national title, period. But UGA adds another top 25 win. That's 3 on the year. Will Auburn finish top 25? That's a tough one. I don't know. Again, Auburn's schedule only gets harder throughout the year in the stretches of games, so it just is what it is. But UGA, you get UGA at home, especially with Auburn. Their wide receivers are just not cutting it. I'm going to be honest with you. I do not know if Auburn's wide receivers are good enough to win some of these bigger matchups, like against Arkansas, Ole Miss, maybe even Texas A&M. I think they can beat Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State is the worst team in the SEC West. I know they beat A&M, but A&M hopefully will get Haynes King back and these wide receivers back before everything goes downhill for A&M. It could get really, really ugly for the Aggies. It might get really, really ugly tonight if you're a Texas A&M fan. But, yeah, that's pretty much it today. UGA rolled over Auburn 34-10. Could have been worse, maybe. But, you got to be happy. Going on the road against Auburn, beating them by 24 points with a backup QB without your 3 leading wide receivers from last year, 3 starting wide receivers, without Kenny McIntosh, without, a lot of players out. 2 starting safeties. I mean, just again, a lot of players out in this game. UGA did a really, really good job. They won this game on that offense and defensive line, dominated line of scrimmage yet again. And that's just what UGA does best. Anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Georgia channel and the SEC channel if you're not. And go check out Mark Rogers, if you do not, the voice of college football here on YouTube. But anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next live stream. So